City of Stevens Point Board of Park Commissioners meeting, recorded September 2nd, 2020.
So here we go. It's the Board of Park Commissioners September 2nd, 2020 meeting. Will come to order, please. Dan, would you take the roll call?
You bet. Freckman? He's here. Koziczkowski?
Here.
Hall?
Here.
Kirsch is excused. McDonald?
Here.
O'Connor?
Here.
Shabilsky?
Here.
Shore?
Here.
Slowinski's not with us yet. Sorensen's not with us yet. And Zerzua?
Here.
We have a quorum.
All right, excellent. Item number 2, approval of August 5th, 2020 meeting minutes. Did John so move? Okay. Do we have a second? And Mike seconded. Is there any discussion? Additions or corrections? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are accepted. Item number 3, approval of ABER Suzuki Center special event requested at Pfiffner Pioneer Park Bandshell on September 26, 2020. Whoops, how did I lose that?
Okay, I think we just have to end of the meeting here.
How did I get something popped up here? Okay. Okay.
I can help out here, Liz. So we just
There we go. Okay.
Had a couple people join the meeting. Is anyone from the Suzuki Center recital with us that would like, that's with part of that event?
Anne-Marie Novak.
Anne-Marie.
Okay. So I guess I can introduce this item if that's okay, Chair McDonald.
That's great. Yes.
Okay. So what we have in front of us here is a new special event request, which is why it's on the Park Commission agenda. Looking to use the bandshell in Pfiffner Pioneer Park. They're asking to essentially have the recital at the park location, have stated there'll be 50 or less. And we do have somebody here if there's specific questions. After staff has reviewed, there is nothing else at the park that day. We would recommend approval based on their permit or application.
Does anybody have any comments or questions?
Is the 50
Makira?
Yep, sorry. Is the 50 person, does that include any people from the organization as well?
If that's how you have it structured, that's how we will make it happen. We're just going to set a limit on the number of performers and their parents. We're not making this public as far as inviting guests or public to come in. It would just be our own faculty and students and parents. That's it.
Anne-Marie, would you like to provide any more information?
This is going to be our one shot for having an in-person recital this year. So we're pretty excited to even think that we might get to do it outside or, just anywhere together. So we're hoping to have a chance to do it.
All right. Any other questions or comments from the members? Okay. Can we have a motion on it then, please?
I'd move to approve it.
I second.
Mike moved, Makira second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, the motion passes. Thank you and good luck to you on that, Anne-Marie.
Thank you very much.
Item number 4, approval of the construction of a concrete apparatus in the Bukolt Park Skatepark to be installed by John Pearson and volunteers. Okay. John, do you want to, actually I should have you state your name and address, John, and then if there's any comments you'd like to make or provide any information on it for us.
Sure. John Pearson, 400 West Maple Ridge Drive, Stevens Point. Thank you for giving this some time. Yeah, so what I'm looking at is an addition to the upper part by the bowl of basically a curb. I had gone to the city sort of junkyard, as it were, of curbs by the sculpture park, and looked at some curbs there. But I think the best solution would be to build something that's in place. So pouring something, getting a mix from county concrete that is using the spec concrete mix that was used to build the park, which is a formula that the city engineer has. And we would just form a simple, like a 6-inch tall, probably a 12-foot long curb that would go along that, what would be maybe the north and east part of that upper flat area. And another thought that if it were to be possible, would be to put one along the edge of the long curved ledge that faces the river, and essentially the same sort of curb, but possibly a little bit higher, but under 9 inches tall. You know, these seem like pretty basic and almost unimportant features, but someone voluntarily just brought a curb that they built. You can see it in one of the photos if you have the photos up. A person I know who's done quite a bit of concrete work made that and just brought it, and it's become really popular. And it's just a 5-foot long curb, because that's as large as he could make one and still be able to move it himself. So I was thinking a permanent one that wouldn't be moved around, and then of course the one that's mobile would be just removed. But he's an experienced concrete worker. I have a fair amount of experience myself, and we were just going to pour it up using rebar and all the best practices to make a very solid concrete curb. So that's the plan. If anyone has any questions, I could try to field them for them.
Mike?
Yeah, what specifically does that add to the park? I mean, I'm not a skateboarder, so I really don't.
Sure. It's kind of funny because some of the least significant things that people look right past every day are things that skateboarders key in on, and drainage ditches and loading docks and curbs. There's probably tens of thousands of images and videos of people skating curbs. It sounds so simple, it's hard to even imagine that it could be fun, but that little curb that my friend James brought is probably one of my favorites at the park, because it's a solid concrete edge, so it gives you the feel rather than metal. It gives you the kind of the sensation of grinding, and there's just really nothing like it at the park. But yet it is a cornerstone of street skating, because they're found everywhere, and it's just kind of an interesting addition. As minor as it seems, it will be well loved and really cheap also.
Director.
Yeah, and I just want to add, John and his crew of volunteers, as you all know, have done tremendous work at our skate park. Have been a really good partner for the city. These are extra curbs. Scott Helverson said that they would be happy to move them for John, and then obviously we would assist if they need, but they plan to do most of the install themselves. So staff has met with John on the field. We've walked both areas. Super happy with his reaching out and touching base, and we are fully supportive and recommend approval of this installation.
Great. Thank you.
And I just am looking for clarification. So what it says in the agenda is that we're using old parking lot curbs, but it sounds like instead they're pouring a new one. So is there an additional cost because of that?
Well, we had looked at using the existing curb at one point, but I think the best and most secure solution would be to just pour some in place. The Stevens Point Skate Park itself has a fund through the city, so there would be no public cost. We'd be using less than a yard of concrete, which I think is about $165 right now. So it would be a modest cost, and all the framing up, all the form material would be stuff that I have myself. So there'd be no cost to the public for this for these features.
Okay, thank you.
Mike,
I'd like to move to approve this item as presented by John. I bike by there a lot in the green circle. I've never gone by there and not seen anybody out there using it. So, I mean, that park does get great use.
I second.
and Sue seconds. Okay. Any further discussion? John, I had one question. When do you intend to do this work?
I'd like to do it this fall. I mean, still probably in September. I wanted to meet with my friend James. He lives in Nakusa, but he's a tradesman of about 30 years, and so he's a great asset and has a huge passion for the skate park. And between the two of us, we were just going to assemble the form materials and just do it whenever we had a chance. So probably ideally in the next 3 weeks, but certainly this fall is the plan.
This is a slight change of plans compared to what we had in our agenda notes. Is that acceptable, Director?
It is. I apologize. Yeah, if they're looking to pour it, that wouldn't change anything. We still would have the curb if they needed it.
Sure. Okay, great. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you, John, in advance for the work you're going to be doing.
Thank you all. I'll leave you now. Appreciate it very much.
Okay, great.
Thanks, John.
All right, item number 5, approval of beverage sales agreement for Stevens Point Parks, Recreation and Forestry Departments with Bottling Group LLC Pepsi. And Dan, are you going to have Kate address that, or?
Sure, I will actually. We do have Kate Gullickson with us. Kate's spent a lot of time. She worked with Scott and Todd from our team to talk about what their divisions use for our soda contract and for some of our beverages. And she's been working on this for, I think, about a month or so. So Kate, if you can kind of highlight your summary and let us know what you've come up with. I think she's done a really good job putting in the summary here for you in a memo.
Sure, absolutely. So like Dan said, we've been working on this for about a month or so. Really just looking at what are our options as far as beverage sales goes. Currently, we are a Coca-Cola facility. So we have exclusively sold Coca-Cola for as long as I've been a part of the city. And so we put a request for proposal out at the end of July to the different soda distributors. And 2 proposals came in, one from Coca-Cola, our current distributor, and then the other from Pepsi. So after review, and you can see the comparison in your packet from the memo I put together, our recommendation is that we go with Pepsi for a 3-year contract. They had better soda pricing. We currently do not get any rebates back from Coca-Cola, and Pepsi would provide that for us per case. They also would be a sponsor for Riverfront Rendezvous. We wanted to add that in there. Not as much as Coca-Cola was in the past. There's a $500 difference you see, but we'll gain that back in our rebate revenue at the end of the season. So if anyone has any questions about the proposals or the contract or the comparison, I am here for questions.
Thank you, Kate. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I was looking at that Coke. It says varies by product. I mean, how do you know to compare to?
As far as the rebates?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it depended on the volume of soda we sell. And with Pepsi, it was just whether we buy 5 cases or 500 cases, they were willing to give us the $2 per case. So really Coca-Cola, they go on volume versus just the number of cases.
That makes sense then to go with Pepsi on that.
Yeah, one other thing to note is we have been with Coca-Cola for quite some time. So really, we hadn't really shopped it, essentially. We just kind of were in a deal. So one benefit of this process, too, is that now we've really compared the 2 together and they're aware of it. And we anticipate in 3 years when we put it back out, that would be our goal probably, to be able to do it again. And then obviously Coca-Cola would have a chance to earn their business back. So one benefit is we've just kind of had this handshake agreement. Now we formalize it a lot more, and we know, apples to apples what we're being offered.
Yeah, I think that Coca-Cola agreement has been in effect probably since the ice rink opened.
Oh.
I mean, it's been a long time, so good. Do we have a motion anywhere? Or any other questions, I should say? Thanks for all the work that you did on this, Kate. It's pretty extensive.
Absolutely. Thank you, guys.
I'll make a motion to accept.
Okay, a motion by John,
Second.
second by Sean. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion carries. We'll be going with Pepsi. Thanks again, Kate.
Thank you.
Item number 6, approval of video streaming service contract for KB Willett Arena with Live Barn Incorporated.
Kate's
Dan?
Kate's kind of dominating the agenda tonight here. She's got back-to-back items. But as you're all aware, we're in a COVID environment, and we've been working on protocols and procedures, reducing numbers, and kind of timely. We had a company reach out, Live Barn, that had a streaming service. Essentially, if anyone's ever been to like a ball tournament at Wisconsin Dells is one of them, just to game Fieldhouse, for example, they've had this technology for a number of years. It's getting more and more popular across the state. So Kate and her team started taking a look at it. And Kate, if you can kind of pick it up from there and fill us in with the summary, and then we'll make a recommendation here to the committee.
Sure. So Live Barn is a subscription-based service that we're proposing to bring to the Willett. So a person would pay for a monthly subscription, and that would allow access to the video streaming of the Willett. It can be used for events, practices, games, etc. So this is really something that we were interested in with the limiting numbers of people in our buildings. So, grandmas and grandpas can still watch, the Learn to Skate lessons on Saturdays, or, aunts and uncles can watch a hockey game from down the street versus coming into the rink and having more people than we're supposed to, in the facility. So there's no cost to the city. The Live Barn installs their own cameras. They bring their own internet connection in, and they also do all the marketing, or provide us with the marketing supplies to kind of let people know that the service is at the Willett. We also sent the contract to Attorney Beverage just so he could take a look at things. Per Attorney Beverage, he would like the language added to our waivers and contracts, which is pretty par for the course, talking to the Live Barn rep. There are an extensive amount of rinks that currently have Live Barn, Mosinee, Ice Arena, Wapaka, Wisconsin Rapids, just to name a few in the area. So again, it allows people to access, viewing of the ice surface when they can't be at the arena. We also will get a revenue share from the subscriptions. It's 30% of each paid subscription that will get kicked back to us, really for no cost to us at all from Live Barn. So a few things to note that you might have saw in the contract. It is a 6-year contract. Talking with the rep, he assured us that 6 years is a long time, but really their goal is to, if we have any troubles with them or lack of interest in the service, we can pull off of that 6-year contract. They just ask that none of their competitors would be brought in replacement of them within that 6 years. And you guys may note too, the university streams games currently through their services and through their sports and information department. That has no implications at all with this service because those schools don't use a competitor service. So those are two things to note in the contract that I know we had questions on too. So I'm here for any other questions that anyone else might have about Live Barn.
And one other thing that, Kate, thanks for the summary. One other thing we'll note is we have the ability to choose what we allow people to see. So for example, a competitive advantage. When the pointers are in there practicing, we would not allow it to be streamed so that, you know, a competitive team or somebody else could watch it and see what they're doing. Similarly, if we had some sort of rehearsal going on that we didn't want, when we work with those organizers or the Crystal Ice Figure Skating Club or one of those groups, if somebody said, okay, this is something we don't want, we can control it. So that's the other positive, is we'll work with those organizations when we're signing contracts. Kate is pretty much in constant communication with the users as they set their dates and such. So we can work through the process of, okay, this is allowable for families to see and this isn't as well.
Yep, and me and my staff would have that control to block out that viewing time. It wouldn't be like someone on the live barn end. It would be directly, you know, in the Willett Ice Arena. We would have that control to block off viewing of things.
Mike,
How does this affect a couple things like, say, the WWSP, television, doing a pointer game, or Zaleski Sports doing like a Spash hockey game?
Yep.
Are they still allowed to do that?
Right. So those aren't subscription-based programs that they're using to stream those events. So we would just block off the live barn viewing and allow those user groups to continue to use their ways of broadcasting the game. So there would be no interference at all.
Okay.
So the exclusivity portion is really, it's tied heavily to that. We wouldn't basically bring another streaming service. You couldn't have live barn offered and then somebody else that was charging to watch the program.
So is this going to, sorry.
Go ahead, Sean.
Is this going to be basically 24/7 unless a group has said specifically that they don't want it broadcast at any given time?
If we wanted it to be, yes, we can block off times where there's no one in the building too.
Yeah, right.
Because there's nothing to be seen. There's no user groups. We wouldn't need the cameras on at all.
So I'm just curious, have you reached out to the athletic department at UWSP, just pointer hockey as an example, just to take their temperature on this? As far as I know, they've got whatever they do, and I know Spash hockey and stuff like that. Has this been mentioned to them? Are they aware of it?
They are not aware of it. We wanted to bring it to the park commission to see if it was even an option for a service to bring into the rink. We can definitely have conversations with each individual user group, on a singular basis to make sure that they're good with things. And also a key point that I didn't go over too is they can share the streaming footage. So say Spash Hockey wanted to purchase a subscription, they could get their practices videotaped, and then they can watch back their practice tape for learning things, or game footage as well. So if they wanted to do that, so those are all like key advantages of having this program in the rink as well. So no, we have not had those conversations though at this time.
And along those lines too, how this is work essentially is they'll be aware of it when they sign paperwork with us for the rental too. And if they would say, no, it's something we don't want, we can do that. We just block it out. The other thing to note is, should we see something, let's say something comes up 2 weeks from now or at the first game and we say this isn't going to work, we have I think it's a 90-day exit clause, we can get out of it. We wouldn't be able to bring in a streaming service, but we've never had one for 25 years or 30 years. So essentially we'd have to wait 6 more years to do one. But this is the one that this live barn is really controlling the market at this point in the region in terms of being introduced. I'm sure there'll be more competitors that come as more technology advances, but they seem very reasonable to work through a lot of these hurdles. And we do have a lot of user groups. Being that we own the facility, it's ultimately our decision. And then again, if they would say no, we could block it out. And again, if that would ever become a problem down the road, we could just basically exit the contract with that clause.
Do you know, Dan, if the people that would be subscribing to this, is it like a month-to-month thing? So if we as a city would decide that we don't want this service provided anymore, are there, is there any?
My understanding, and Kate can let us know this for sure. My understanding is you can do single usage where you wanted to just pay to see something specific, or you can subscribe to it. But I believe that as well is something that can be canceled. It's not like you're locked in for 12 months.
Right. It's on a month-to-month basis.
$14.95 a month?
Yep. Yep, $14.95, and then it goes up to $26.95 for some additional features. So those are the low and high price points of the subscription services. And also, if they have a traveling hockey player and other rinks have this service, they only need to purchase one subscription. So, for example, Ice Hawks has Live Barn currently. So if they had, a team playing over here, and mom's over at the Ice Hawks arena watching another child, she can stream the game over here and not have to pay 2 subscription fees. It's just one overall fee to access the Live Barn catalog of rinks.
Kate, you said that the Ice Hawks have this. Have you talked to any other or ice facilities to see if there's any downside to this service?
I have not. I haven't heard of any downsides, but I haven't specifically talked to rinks about the service. I just know that quite a few in the area, provide the service for their guests.
Dan, do we need to have something written into the contract that if we want to leave this service before the 6 years?
It's actually in there. So if you look underneath,
okay, I didn't see that.
we can get the page for term in terms of the exit clause. It's going to be on page 32 of your packet, the term and agreement. It states it will automatically renew for successive terms of 2 years unless either party notifies the other party in writing and its intent to discontinue this agreement. Terms of term. Notwithstanding the foregoing, but subject to subsection 3.1, either party shall have the right to terminate this agreement for any reason upon giving 90 days written notice to other party. But then it goes into the clause about should we give that 90 days, they have the exclusivity still, notwithstanding that provision for the 6 years.
Okay, thank you.
Liz?
John, yes.
Would it be worthwhile for Kate to contact somebody over at the Ice Hawks, that one of their facility people, just to make sure there's no problems that they see with it? And if that comes in clear, we approve it or approve it as that?
We can definitely do that if the committee would like it. That's not a problem. We can reach out if there's enough. I mean, it's not something we have to have tomorrow. Essentially, all that would do is delay the install, a month or month and a half. But if that's something the committee would like, we're more than happy to do that.
I guess I'm just looking at if there was something, maybe a facility would, see how it's working for them. That's just my thought.
Is there any further discussion or questions for Kate or for Dan? John, did you want to make a motion with including that in it?
Sure, I will. So make a motion to approve Live Barn for the KB Willett, and we'll have Kate just do some checking just to see with the Ice Hawks if they have any issues or not with it. If no issues, I guess we go ahead and go for it. Can we do that, Dan, without bringing it back next month reporting?
Yeah, essentially what you'd be doing is you'd be authorizing staff, provided we don't see anything that we believe the committee should review, that we could move forward, or that we're not told of something that would be an issue. But obviously that would require a second and a vote here.
Okay, Jeremy, did you have
I'll
something?
second that. Yep.
Thank you. All right, it's been moved by John, seconded by Jeremy, to approve with a caveat that we approve the video streaming service contract for KB Willett with Live Barn. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposition? All right. It
So
has been,
before we move on, then what we'll do, just so everyone's aware, we'll touch base with the UWSP. We'll also touch base with a couple of rinks, and if everything checks out, we'll enter into it. If anything is of certainty, I'll touch base with the chairperson, and then we'll bring it back at that point next month.
sounds great. Thank you, Dan. Thanks, Kate.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right. Item number 7, awarding Bukolt and Koziczkowski Park beach area improvement planning and concept design to Rettler Corporation. Dan Shaw.
Okay, so this item comes as a kind of a carryover from our capital budgeting discussions last month when we talked about what's in the 2021 future and beyond. And at that meeting, the board discussed and talked with one of the community members about our 2 beach facilities. One was not necessarily ever maybe deemed a beach, but it's in Koziczkowski Park and it's used that way. And it was set up with a retaining wall, as well as then the one at Bukolt that I think everyone's very familiar with. Following the meeting last month, Alder Zerzua, Alder Sawinski, and then Krista Olson got together with myself, and we talked about some of the opportunities and what our next steps could be. And where we kind of landed from that discussion was we really need to start with an investigation and see what our #1 issues are at both locations, then go through a planning process to be able to come up with what our options are so that we can land on ultimately a basic concept and some preliminary cost estimates so that this commission or committee can decide what we're putting in the capital budget in the future. And we also talked about the importance of getting some community input on that, as well as trying to seek out, is there some natural and environmentally friendly options for places like Koziczkowski. We also have several entities for like Bukolt with QIPCO, Consolidated Water and Power Company, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission. So FERC, there's a couple different regulatory agencies that have to be a part of this. So following that meeting, we did reach out and touch base with Rettler, who has worked with us for many planning and investigative things in the past. And they provided a proposal, which is in the packet for each location. Essentially what we have is we do have some remaining funds. As you recall, for ATC, we received $20,000 to sell the easement for them funds to be used back in that park. This commission did allocate that money there. And when we sold some property in Bukolt Park, we do have some remaining funds there as well from that sale back, I think in 2016 or 15, don't quote me on the year. So what the committee that met, I guess I'll call it an informal committee, but we did that night when we discussed that meeting, we talked about continuing to meet as a group as we'd work through this process. What we're recommending is that we would hire Rettler. It would be $3,000 each, so a total of $6,000. We would fund it through those 2 allocated funds for each of those parks. And really what you'll see in the document is really we'd be starting with, they would come in, they would investigate what we have currently. They would look and see what type of challenges we have, document it. They would help us facilitate some conversations with the community, whether that be either a survey or a meeting, trying to get some community input on it. And we would come back then with some recommendations. At that point, obviously the Parks Commission would play a large role, providing some feedback and some input on what you'd like to see. And eventually we'd land with some cost estimates and a concept. When we look at both facilities, there's some really strong opportunities. As you know, Bukolt has really sat vacant, especially since Nature Treks has left that facility. There is a plethora of things that could happen there. It really is going to come down to what does the community want? What do we want? What can we afford? And I think if we come in with an open mind, we really could do something that will be for the next 50 years, a real strong suit of our park system and our community. So to tell you, I'm excited about going through this process is an understatement. I think the committee felt the same way. At Koziczkowski Park, very similarly, as much use as that gets with McDill Pond right there, we have a really nice recreation attraction. It's one of the main kayaking areas that people use in our community. So again, I think it sells itself when you look at going through this process. Obviously, funds do play a large role. So that's a long-winded way of me saying our group and staff recommends awarding this to Rettler. We would begin this process this fall. The intent would be to bring something back probably midwinter with getting this into a capital budget in the future then for a future year. And I guess if Alder Swinsky or Alder Zerzua, if I missed anything, feel free to add that in there.
No, you did great. I just wanted to add that I just think that this is a great idea, and that Bukolt Park's one of our most used parks in the city, and that area over there by the beach and the boathouse there has been kind of just there for many years, and I strongly believe that it's time for a facelift there and something new. So I encourage my fellow commissioners to support this and move ahead with it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any other comments or questions? It really is a historically significant building down in Bukolt Park, 2 buildings, I should really say. So it's great to see something going. And Jeremy, I think you were kind of the instigator on this. And so thank you, Dan, for picking up and running with it. So do we have a motion here? Mike?
Yeah, I'd move to accept Rettler as the provider on that service.
Okay. A second? Oh, Makira?
Yes.
Okay, Makira second. Mike made the motion, seconded by Makira, to award the Bukolt Koziczkowski Park Beach Area Improvement Planning and Concept Design to Rettler. All those in favor? Oh, wait.
One thing I
Yeah.
just wanted to add real quickly so you understand the proposal too, is you'll notice at the bottom of the page, it does list the lump sum not to exceed. And then there's a mention of a percentage for design. So you know what you'd be authorizing here for the motion. We would not move into design phase. There would be a proposal for that, and that would be a subsequent action that would come back to the commission here down the road. What we'd be looking at is just getting to the stage of that planning process, the cost estimates, and a concept, and then we would have more discussions on it. So just so you know, it's 7.5% of a construction price. We're talking more money at that point. This would just be for those lump sums. So I just want to make sure everybody probably knows that, but just as an extra precaution, so I mentioned it.
Okay. Okay, we have a motion out in a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That motion is carried. Item number 8, approval of 2021 Parks, Recreation, and Forestry operational budget. Dan's got some information to share with us here.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen with you. As you know, there wasn't necessarily a spreadsheet in the packet because our meeting happened as very quickly to when we actually first received the budget to work through it. So last week we were kind of scrambling, getting things ready. My team and I have been spending a lot of time getting this set up to make a presentation tonight. So what I'll do, I'm going to share the screen. We have a rather lengthy budget document that we use for our department. So I broke them out into single page documents of each kind of section. And I'm just going to give an overview. It's hard not to be long-winded here because there's a lot to it. Really, this is the discretionary items. So what us as directors have been told is to be looking at a 0% increase, essentially. So if we were going to increase a line item, to offset that with a decrease somewhere else or an increase in revenue. So last year, you'll recall, was my first time in the city doing the budget process here, but I'd only been here a couple months. So as you can imagine, now going through a full year, I've got a much better handle on it. My team and I have worked together quite a bit. So we've looked at a couple different things we're going to incorporate while still meeting that kind of budget goal. So I guess along the way, if there's questions, I'm happy to be stopped. Just, I guess, raise your hand, or Chairperson McDonald, you can let me know. But I'll try to kind of touch on each section. And then at the end, obviously, I'll open up for questions. And I'm going to go ahead and start here if everybody's ready. Can everyone see the first spreadsheet?
Yes.
Okay, so the first typically place I'd like to start is really on the revenue side of things. So really for our revenue, this year is going to be not great, as we know. There's a lot of different rentals and things that didn't happen, but we do propose that next year we hope to rebound. So we're planning for hoping that things will be able to open back up in more of a non-restricted capacity. We don't have a crystal ball. It's hard to say. This could definitely carry into next year, but we're kind of planning for if we could have a quote unquote more normal year. So when you look at our budget here, really the only things we changed is we have been raising the boat slip rentals every year. We've been kind of putting an increase because of the 5 to 7 year worth of wait list we have. So just a slight modest increase of $500 there because we have made adjustments. And then as well as if you look at our general revenue, which is kind of a fund we use for a lot of different things, our historical numbers have shown that we've been over 8,000. So we did increase that 500. If you go down further, then there's a couple accounts that used to be used that aren't used anymore. A no tax account for Iverson, and then as well as an account for just the vending machines that we don't use anymore. So there's just a $600 reduction for accounts we haven't been putting deposits in. So the long story short is budget 2020 was 166,000 in revenue. We're showing $168,050. Moving into the expense side, which is really the brass tacks of the budget. Again, you don't see the full-time wages, which is a large portion of our budget, not unlike any other department or any other municipality. You're seeing really the discretionary items. On the admin side, you're going to see an increase that's shown underneath seasonal employee wages. This is really twofold. One aspiration I have is to bring an intern. We've talked internally. We've had some interns in other areas, but getting into maybe whether that be somebody that's interested in landscape architecture on the park side, or a recreation management style intern, or maybe somebody that's a forestry or natural resources person for degree background, but they can get a pretty good diverse offering through our department. Based on the environment in our municipal park and rec, pretty well every place does pay those employees like a seasonal employee. So you'll see later, we're increasing it here. We're really just repurposing those dollars from another line section. When you go down then from there, really the only other change you'll notice here is a miscellaneous expense. We've had some historical dollars where we've had miscellaneous things come up. So we're just, again, repurposing some dollars to show that we have a little bit budget in the miscellaneous. So we're not writing to a $0 account. The next large, and this is one of our larger budgets, is the Parks Department budget. So as you know, we bring a heavy seasonal presence in for the Parks Department. Scott oversees, he really almost doubles to triples his team in the early spring, almost actually end of winter, going all the way into as long as we can keep them in the fall. But you'll notice we've looked at some historical data on their seasonal employee wages, and we've had more dollars left in that account than what we've been using. So Scott and I sat down and we really put a pen to paper going through what we have for our vehicles, what we have for equipment, and what our staff level can be so that we can accomplish our goals, but as well as if we can't hire because we don't have the equipment for those people, or if we don't have the enough applicants, things of that nature. Where we landed is there is a reduction shown in our seasonal wages. We do not intend to reduce the staff. That's not our goal. But the way we've budgeted is we do have many staff sometimes that can't work a full summer season, or they can't work from, say, before Memorial Day all the way through Labor Day. So we get some staff that come in for, say, 8 to 10 weeks. So the way we budget this out is we intend we can still fill the roster. We've become more efficient through the years. You know, Scott and his operation, knowing it better and better each year, moving things around. We believe we can accomplish everything and still bring the staff level we need at a $95,399 number. Going down further, though, we didn't necessarily just reduce that budget. We repurposed some of those dollars, for example, underneath the general building maintenance. And the reason that we're showing an increase there is our capital budgeting process is always challenging. We all know that. But we do have some things that we do maintenance-wise that don't necessarily make the capital budget. A couple of them that are on the horizon that Scott brought up and we've talked through is like the bandshell needs to be repainted. We anticipate that could be a $4,000 to $4,500 expense, maybe slightly more. As well as we've been running into more, I'm going to call it routine tuck pointing with some of those older WPA buildings in Iverson. You know that we've put some bigger dollar amounts in our capital budget, but you'll see we increased the 5,000 or really reallocate that down into the general building maintenance with the intent that we would do a project like that a year. The first one we're thinking for 2021 would be painting of the bandshell most likely, or a tuck pointing of like an entrance at Iverson, depending upon which one needs it more when Scott and his team kind of evaluate that when we get into that point. So that's really, that money came out of the seasonal money. And really from the budgeting standpoint, we try to stay within the budget parameter as the Parks Department. So from one line up to the next overall doesn't change much, but this really shows where we're going to write that bill out of or we anticipate. As you go further down, you'll notice a reduction like in the winter sports supplies. We're basing that on actuals. You'll see we've got $2,500 we're proposing instead of $3,500. But really we look, you know, we've had years where it's 200 and we don't have much. Then we've had years where it's been 1,500, 1,800. So it does fluctuate. We want to leave enough money there so we can keep that area where we need it to be. But we did show a slight reduction there. Going further, we've never had a miscellaneous, very similar. You're going to see this also in forestry line item or budget line item for the Parks Department. And we do run into these things. For example, you know, we have to do some things with the geese, which isn't necessarily building related. It's not necessarily turf related. That's a really, you know, that's a miscellaneous expense. So that's one of the things that we've just put in $2,500. Again, we anticipate we're going to have some things that we'd write to that account. Then going down further from there, the ball diamond maintenance. Now that we have Xenoff, we are not having to drag those fields. We're actually seeing a cost savings. So Scott, we looked at it. Again, we're going to leave we do have a number of ball fields yet. We anticipate that we have to continue doing the same maintenance, but at Xenoff, we're kind of in the golden years right now. We're going into year 2. That stuff's like brand new. We're not having to put down chalk and do all those type of things. So overall, if you look at the budget, 2020 budget was $272,900 for this location. We're proposing $257,954. That again is larger than that with the wages because we do have a pretty big perks team, but this is really the discretionary items. Moving next to forestry. Everyone see the forestry one now? Does that come through on your screen?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Very similar. We actually don't show much changes on the seasonal wages or the contracted tree removals. Really, the two changes on the forestry side is the tools and related supplies. Basically, the forestry operation, when they needed tools, we were writing them out of the park side and just kind of using it together. We felt it made more sense for tracking purposes because while we're the same department, they are separate divisions. We did place $1,500 in for the tools and related supplies for forestry, so we've got a better track. It's more accurate for what we're doing for forestry-related operations. As you move down, miscellaneous tree removals, you'll see there's been, in 2019, we had an actual expense here. In 2020, we anticipate we're going to probably have another one. We've had some, they're just kind of not necessarily one-off, miscellaneous tree contracted services that we need or things that relate to it. So we wanted to place 1,500 here again. So we're not just writing to a zero-based account. But if you look at forestry as overall, $3,500 change is what we're proposing. It was $125,345 in 2020, $128,845 in 2021 is what we're proposing. Moving next into the pool underneath Kate's operation. Here, the pool is, last year we actually had some changes. If you look back, we had upped the seasonal wage account. This year we don't have any historical data. As you know, we closed the pool, but we do anticipate to be more efficient with the big upgrade that we did to the mechanical room. So really the only change here is we took $200 out of the mileage expense because it's not been spent. We haven't been using it. We moved that into the safety equipment, but otherwise we are showing actually a 0% change in the pool budget. And we're looking forward to having the doors open hopefully again in 2021. Cemeteries, that does fall underneath Scott's operation here again within our department. We have two of them between Forest and Union. The large expenditure we have on the cemeteries is we do have some seasonal employee wages that we take out of that because we do have seasonals that are on the cemetery maintenance, all basically grass growing season, excuse me, season. So we ran the numbers on that again. We are proposing that to be the same at $22,800. We keep about $500 budgeted because some years we have nothing that we need for maintenance to write to it. Some years, you know, something happens to a building or a headstone or to the gate that we have to do something to, and we do write it to that account. Going down for Union, we haven't had an expenditure there in a while, but we do keep $500 budgeted again, kind of planning ahead. Then we've got a miscellaneous category. I just call them miscellaneous because we don't have really a big recreation kind of section, but Iverson Winter Sports is segregated in here. We do budget enough that we'd have a full winter season. As you know, we've been hit or miss there. Some years we're only open a month and a half. Sometimes we're open a little longer, but we keep $26,000 budgeted. Looking at the increase with seasonal wages, with cost of living, we've got $26,952 budgeted there. You'll see historically we've been down. 2019 was one of our higher years. And again, we're hoping to have good winters, but that's kind of a fluctuating thing. As you look down, we do have some slight supplies. Things like when we buy hot chocolate, or if we have to fix something on the equipment for the toboggan slides or something like that, we do use that for the rec supplies there. So that one is just a $952 increase, just planning ahead if we would have a full season with some of the wage changes. On the general recreation side, the Market Square fountain water, we do maintain the Market Square, so that falls underneath our budget. No increase there. The general janitorial supplies, that's a lot of what we spend on our park system, our buildings for the different supplies that we do use janitorially. We oversee that. That's underneath that general recreation account. And then the Market Square fountain if we do have to do some sort of maintenance. So that budget is not a proposed increase. So $25,500 is where it shows. So essentially, if you look at our whole budget, this all balances. I'm going to pull open a bigger document that will show a little more, and I'm not going to be able to go all the way through it for you because it's too long to fit on the screen essentially. But if you look at our actual operational budget, kind of the take-home message outside of our enterprise funds, which is what the Willett and the Riverfront Arts Center are, here is all of those independent sheets I just showed you. I'm going to scroll all the way down here to the number that matters. Essentially, in 2020, our general fund, or I should say our expenditure total was the $601,000. That's what we're proposing again this next year. We do propose that slight increase in revenue. But we're, again, repurposing some dollars, trying to be efficient, moving things around, but we are coming in at that 0% increase. So that is our actual non-enterprise accounts. And I can take questions on this if there's some now. Otherwise, what I'm going to show you next is the Riverfront Arts Center and the Willett Arena. So when you go into the Riverfront Arts Center, essentially, as you know, we have a part-time director out there. I just got to click between my screen. So I'm going to load that one, you should see. So the Riverfront Arts Center, we do charge fees. So there's some revenue that we take in, but the primary revenue we get there is interest revenue off some of the investment accounts for the funds for the Arts Center. So you'll see the market's been fluctuating quite a bit. It's actually high right now. When we put this in, we're showing 16,000, just planning for in case if the market wasn't where we think it might be or where it is currently. When you go further, the Arts Center sales have been pretty solid. We're showing 14,000 there, but it's fluctuated from 14,000 up to 15,000. It really depends upon the year. Right now, we're not open as frequently as we were. So just trying to be conservative on the revenue numbers. When you look down, essentially, when you see the revenue that we're showing, we have really the 33,100 proposed for the revenue. The Riverfront Arts Center has been receiving room tax dollars every year of 20,000. So that shows a revenue total budget of 53,100. Going to the bottom half of this fund is our expenses. The biggest expense is the director's wages, as you can imagine, the part-time person that's out there 20 hours a week, Andrea. She's there the hours that we're open, and then she manages the volunteer force that keeps it open the rest of the way. And then looking down further, really the other expenses we have are things like postage, general building maintenance supplies, miscellaneous expenses, arts, the show expenses, as well as donations when they do get them. It's an enterprise fund, so we zero-based budget it, essentially. And then if there's money left over, it goes into the fund. If there's money that's not left over, it comes out of the fund balance. So as you can see, the last couple of years, this number on the top that's a little confusing is this unrealized gain or loss. Basically, the funds of the Art Center are in a bond market, so it shows the value of the bonds present day. But when the bonds mature, they come back at the value we invested them. So this does fluctuate. If you look at this number, for example, in 2019, it shows the unrealized gain of 41,000, which throws this number at the bottom saying the fund grew by 116. That's not completely true. We'd have to take the 41,000 out because it's just showing and I'm not an accountant here, but it's the realized gain in the bond market of today's value. So really, if you look down at that bottom number, if you took the 41,000 out, that's the amount that the Art Center was in the positive for that year. So the Art Center has been doing well in terms of our expenses and our revenue. And again, we're proposing a balanced budget next year, and we anticipate our expenses probably to be less than even what they maybe budgeted at, but that's how we balance the budget for the enterprise fund. The Willett Arena is much longer or much larger. So at the Art Center, as you can see, about 53,000 what we're budgeting. When you look at the Willett Arena Fund, it's lengthy. So we have our public service charges in the top that go into everything from ice center general revenue, ice skating revenue from Learn to Skate, the actual ice revenue that we do for charging. So really, I'm just going to touch on the changes here again. If you look at the ice center rental revenue, we did reduce that by about $4,600, just basing it on, we jumped in 2018. We did take a little dip in 2019, getting ready for the construction project. This year, we're going to take a dip again because of it being closed early and we aren't going to have fans and spectators. We anticipate on a more regular year, 135,000 based on our current user groups. Going further, they're just small changes again, cleaning up a couple of accounts that we haven't had deposits in quite some time. We do have dry floor rentals available, and we have a group signed up to use the dry floor. So we conservatively budgeted $1,000. I'm really confident. I think we'll blow through that number, and talking with Kate once we get back to normal, hopefully attracting more dry floors, but we did want to put a number in. And then going down further, we've got some, like the arena advertising, just basing it on actuals. Essentially, we show a decrease of $3,855 in revenue, trying to get our numbers in line with more historical data. From there, we turn into the actual expenditures on the arena. Our seasonal employee wages, going off historicals, we're showing a reduction of $5,000 in wages. We're showing that skater instructor wages going down $2,000, really using our recent historical data, as well as Kate's now in her role a couple more years. We've gone through what the staff is, how our staffing levels are, what we're doing. We did make a change in our Learn to Skate program, so we feel confident that those reductions in the seasonal wages are going to work out. When you go further, then again, pretty small changes, but like our ice equipment maintenance repairs, I want to call this one out. If you look back in 17, 18, and 19, we had 2 years, it was over $100,000 we spent on ice center maintenance. Now that we've updated that floor, we anticipate to spend in the thousands and maybe even less in many years. So we brought this account number down to 26,000. It was 29,000 last year. And as our equipment continues to be efficient, we think we can probably dial that number back more and more. But again, we should see some major savings from those upgrades to the building, which is what we had set out to do. Looking at general equipment maintenance, very similarly, now that we don't have the old equipment, there was years it was 35,000. There's still some things aged in the building that are going to come up. So we reduced that $1,000, and similarly, we'll look at that every year, but we do anticipate that those expenses should continue to kind of decrease for a number of years here while the equipment's brand new. Going a little further, miscellaneous expenses were reduced $1,000. Essentially, we matched, because again, this is an enterprise fund, zero-based budgeting on it, a reduction of $3,855. Then the bottom half of the Willett Arena shows our concessions. So the concessions for the football side, as well as for the arena side, because they all are sold out of the arena, are on the Willett's budget, so the revenue and the expense. So you'll see on the seasonal wages for just the concessions, $20,000 is projected the same. General supplies is the same. The only thing that we reduced is our commission payments for some of the sharing that we do with the user groups that help us staff that actual concession window. So Long story short, the numbers that you're probably most concerned about. How's the Willett been doing? If you actually look back, the Willett lost money for a couple of years in a row. If you go back to 2017, with those big floor repairs, it was actually at $97,000 loss that year. Going the year ahead, it was a $65,000 loss overall in 2018. 2019, significantly closer because of the floor upgrades and not having that large floor expenditure. And we believe we're going to right the ship. We're actually in the black right now. So that's a big kudos to Kate and her team. But again, COVID's really thrown us a wrench. I don't believe we're going to stay in the black because of some of the revenue for this year. But we are budgeting a zero-based budget for 2021. And again, trying to attract more revenue generating. We believe we're going to continue to trim the expenses. And again, we're prepared to continue to make this look even better once we get back to normal operations. So take-home message here is 392,555 was the budget in 2020. And we are proposing a slight reduction, 388, I should say, 700. So just under $4,000 reduction for a zero-based. And we hope to bring a profit in if we can have a normal year. With that, again, a lot of numbers, a lot of spreadsheets. I guess at this point, I'd love to answer any questions that you have. And ultimately, if there's anything that the commission would see or like one way or the other, I'd be looking for, if I could get a motion to submit this. What would happen then if the commission's in agreement is I would submit this to the comptroller and this would move through the finance and common council process from here.
Okay. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I do.
Sue.
I was wondering, Dan, when were you contemplating painting the bandshell?
So that's a great question. So actually, when we did our capital budget, and Scott's on the line, so I'm going to defer to him in just a second. We just noticed that it was getting closer and closer to the timeline. So Scott, would you mind kind of just walking us through your thought process in terms of timeline if we would approve that and move that forward?
Yeah, that's going to be something that we're going to have to deal with, different events and everything. We're going to have some flexibility on that. But if, because the bandshell gets so many eyes seen, it's something that it should be kept up and really made to look nice. So it's coming up in the next couple of years there that if we neglect it, there's going to be some negative views, so to speak.
So ultimately, Commissioner Hall, what we would be looking at is we probably would get an estimate on it, maybe over the late winter into spring, and then we would try to coordinate it around all the events that go on there. And then also when we bring the painters in, typically they're pretty good at saying, you know what, you might get another year out of this, or, we can do this now and things of that nature.
The reason I was asking is I imagine because the Junior Women's Club, built the bandshell, I imagine that that they're going to postpone or cancel their tinsel trail, which is their major fundraiser that they generate funds, and then they give all the money back to the community for this fall. But I'm just thinking if we got proposed that to them, that they might want to, do that for their IEP project for, say, the next year, that they might be willing to do that since they were we initially built the bandshell. So
that would be fantastic because that could reduce some of the city's expenditure too, and then we could maybe do some tuck point that same year.
Yeah, I would be glad to contact the people who are there now and ask them about that.
Excellent, thank you.
Any other comments or questions, John?
I'll make a motion to accept this.
I'll second.
Okay. Any further discussion? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve and forward the 2021 Park Rec and Forestry operational budget. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that is, it's carried, and thank you for that presentation, Director. All right, now on to the Director's report.
The director's report, just wanted to give a COVID update. We are still working with the 50-person maximum and still we have the forms in place now, just like we did before. But we also actually have acknowledged the enforcement side of it, that we have the ability to, and actually people have been really good about it. So we've had Just a couple calls minimally, but for the most part, people really understand it. They also actually acknowledge the mask mandate, that we're letting them know that that is something that the Parks Department is following. The COVID-19 plan for the Willett Arena, again, we've been kind of, because of the pool planning, it really carried into the Willett planning. And we anticipate how we're going to handle that too is less than 50 people on the ice when we're doing our activities and programs and we're working through entrances. We got a pretty lengthy document developed and been working with the health department so ice can go in, which you'll see down here later. I mentioned next week, and that we can get our Learn to Skate program up and running. So again, that part's been working well. And as a whole, the department has really answered the call, wearing masks when they get in trucks together, when they're working out and about. We do have the benefit that when the weather's nice, we're outside. So our staff has been able to keep the parks looking really nice during that COVID time. So again, the parks have been in good hands, even though it's been challenging, and they've been getting used very heavily. On the park side of things, the tuck pointing project for Gerke Stadium is done. So we did have the large capital project, you recall, and we got that taken care of before any blocks, or came off that building, which was one of our major concerns. We also got the gazebo up down at the Wells Point Landing that was taken down, you recall, in the storm of July 2019. So we added a sidewalk now. That way, if somebody has any mobility impairments, they're able to get to that very easily. And it does overlook the beautiful river. So we're happy to get that up. And Scott and his team, a couple members of his crew, spent a lot of time getting it ready, and it really did turn out nice. The seasonal staff at this time of year with school starting up is starting to be reduced. So really lawn mowing becomes our next beast we have to wrestle with, because the grass really starts to get, really increases right as we start to go down in staff numbers. So we'll work through that process. It was quite dry, which slowed it down a little bit, but fall is always one of those challenging times. On the forestry side, we're significant watering efforts were underway for several weeks there because it had gotten so dry. We've experienced more rain here recently, but we're hoping that the drought part, kind of season is done here for a while now. Staff's been working on clearing and trimming the stop sign view obstructions, getting that piece ready. And then ultimately right now they're preparing for fall planting. So Todd's been working a lot with TDS and their install with the utilities here in town. But in addition, fall planting is right around the corner. So they're working through that. I mentioned the Willett Arena. Ice is going in next week. Registration for Learn to Skate program has started. We're actually up over, I think, 70 registrants already. So the online registration system has been working very well. And Kate's been kind of navigating that with Ann's assistance. And the flooring project is set to begin here. We're hoping in September, and we'll get that up and running before we hit game season. So still trudging ahead, a lot going on, and a lot of exciting things on the horizon.
Liz?
Great. Anybody have comments or questions? Was that John?
Yes. Dan, what's how are we coming in Bukolt as far as the new path? Have we started that?
Yeah, so they were scheduled to come between September 1st and 15th. So we're very soon to have that in, and we're really just waiting on the contractor. Our staff cleaned it all out. So as soon as Laddick Excavating, who's doing that for the Green Circle Committee, as soon as they arrive in the next basically week or two, it could be any day, that'll go down. And then we hope to do something. The Green Circle's talking about how it'll work with COVID, but maybe a virtual, or people could go walk it at that point.
All right, thank you.
Who is this 715-341?
3426. I can mute that number. I 341-3426. I just asked you to unmute if you'd like to speak or if you had a question.
No, sorry about that. That was my beeper on my car, Dan.
Oh, it's Todd. Okay, Todd, I'm just gonna go ahead and mute you again here. Okay.
Yep. Go ahead.
Okay.
Okay. Who is that?
That's it for me today.
Okay. Great. Item number 10, we are going to adjourn and go into closed session. We will not be we'll not be going into regular session after that. So we're just going to adjourn from closed session. So, okay.
We do need a motion to that.
We need a motion. Okay, thanks.
And a roll call vote.
I'll make a motion.
All right.
I'll second.
John has made the motion and Mike seconded. All right, all those in favor?
I think you might have to take a roll call vote.
Yeah, do a roll
we
call.
have to take a roll call? Okay.
I can call it if you'd like.
Yes.
Okay. Gledesky?
Here. Yes.
Hall?
Here.
McDonald?
Yes.
O'Connor?
Yes.
Jabilski?
Yes.
Shore?
Aye.
Slowinski?
Aye.
Zarazua?
Aye.
Freckman. Freckman?
Yes.
Aye, okay.
A video of this meeting is available for viewing on the city's website, stevenspoint.com/videos.